What's Frankie always say? Frankie says relax. And I mean, nobody after the events of game one and knowing Pavel Francouz, we got the word around the afternoon hours that he was getting the start and Darcy Kemper was getting the night off. Nobody thought a shutout would be pitched. Not because Pavel Francouz is not capable. It's just we thought a repeat of game one in just fast and furious goals were just going to be the norm in this series. Avalanche hang up 3 in 2 minutes, and don't give up anything to Edmonton. Are you kidding me here? I think Darcy Kemper can take another game off, let him get even more right in the head and not so much blurry vision.
Yeah.
But this was just another great game all around. But the focal point is our boy, Pavel Francouz. Let's talk about this.
You're Locked On Avalanche, your daily podcast on the Colorado Avalanche. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Locked On Avalanche podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, Chris Maselli. With me, as always, Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan, and the Avalanche are now 2 wins away from getting back to the Stanley Cup in 137 years. It was a good game. They played a great game all around. You really didn't feel like there was any momentum shifts where the first game had all of that. It was just back and forth. And this one, you just felt comfortable with how the Avs were playing for the duration of this game. So we're going to talk about it. But first things first, thank you for making this your first listen of the day. Always appreciated. Follow the show on social media outlets, LOPN_Avalanche on Twitter, Locked On Avalanche on Instagram. Questions, comments, concerns, opinions, lockedonavalanche@gmail.com. And follow the show over on our YouTube channel, over on YouTube. Hit subscribe, get notified when a new show goes live. All right, Shaggy, you got to be feeling good about this one.
I have advocated for this man since the beginning of the playoffs. I tried to get him in the Nashville series.
You tried to get him in with a healthy Darcy Kemper.
That's right, I did. Yeah. And it's about time. No, this is, I mean, I'm just as surprised as anyone. Like 14 goals in game one, 4 in game two. And
all by one team.
All by one team. And Frankie shut out MacKinnon, Draisaitl, Evander Kane, Tyson Barrie.
You said McDavid.
McDavid, and Draisaitl, Evander Kane, Tyson Barrie, Ceci, Zach Hyman. Yeah. Like, go down the list.
Those guys are on a roll.
And they are. And made them. And not only was it Frankie that looked great, we talked about it in the last episode, the defense stepped up.
Yes.
And to the cherry on top, the foot was not taken off the gas.
No. Like defensively, they were great.
Yeah.
I don't think. I mean, there were a couple. There were 2. There was one that was right in front of Francouz. I don't remember the player who had it, but he put a bad shot. I think he missed the net entirely, if I'm not mistaken.
I think it went straight up
or something like but 2 that just come to my mind of like high danger shots for Edmonton. Other than that, the Avs defense was doing a great job of not putting Francouz in a position to not make the save. He was, I mean, he had good line of sight on a lot of the shots that were coming from, maybe just inside the blue line. They really weren't pressuring him all that much.
He made a save from Ovechkin's office in one of the faceoff dots. That was fun. Taves had to kind of corral him in and say, hey, bud, we got it. Outside of the blue paint, you don't have to travel so far.
Yeah. I'm looking up right now on Money Puck where the shots were coming from. Low danger shots 20. Well, there you go, man. Low danger shots, 28. Medium, 4. High danger shots, 0. They've tracked it as 0. I mean, talk about this. This is a full team change of dynamic from game 1 to game 2, and obviously the players have to get the credit, and Jared Bednar and the coaching staff has to get the credit. They knew, both teams knew, like, we can't keep playing like that. We have to have some defense here. And I guess if you want to give Edmonton some credit for doing, because they gave up 3 goals in 2 minutes. Outside of that, I mean, the Avs only got the 1 extra goal, and that was right at the end on a power play.
Yeah.
So, okay, I think both teams turned up the defense. But you can also say, all right, well, the Avalanche also had 40 shots on goal again. So, all right, everything. The first period of this game was dead even.
Yeah,
shots were pretty close. Corsi for, Corsi against was almost 50% for both teams. Avs had opportunities.
Yeah.
Right off the bat, you had Devon Taves, who had he was gunning right down the center. That he had a good opportunity. Rantanen had one. I think Lehkonen had one. They had the opportunities, and how many times have we seen it this postseason where the Avs have a really good first period, but nothing to show for it on the scoreboard, and then they come out in the second and put up some goals, and they did it again. And this was an avalanche of goals, pardon the pun, but in 2 minutes and like 4 seconds, and that was the game.
And that was something we were talking about in the Locked On Avalanche Twitter space. Was not only was that first period goalless, you wanted one of those goals so bad because you wanted Frankie to have just a little bit of support. Like, what Frankie's capable of, but you wanted to know what Francouz could do with just a little bit of support, where you could settle in, take a breath, and not feel like, if I let one by, that might be it. Because that's how it kind of felt in that first period. This could be the game winner off one shot, because it was so even and down the middle and a lot tighter than game 1.
Yeah.
So you really wanted that support, and then you get that bunch of goals in that second period, and you really felt good. And then Frankie really settled in, and it was a really good feeling going into that third, and the cherry on the top from Nathan MacKinnon.
And then with the 3 goals happened early in the second. And what you didn't, when I put this up on Twitter, like what you didn't want to happen was give up a goal. Especially like how the Avalanche have been doing late in the period. And Edmonton had 2 opportunities late in the second with power plays to get that goal. And I'm like, I'm still okay. Okay, if they do give up a goal, it's still 3-1, but you've given up another late goal. And Edmonton can go into the locker room using that momentum. And the penalty carried over into the third period, but they killed both of them.
Yeah.
So to score those 3 goals and then continue to shut down Edmonton was massive. I can't understate that, because especially with and as the game goes on and Francouz is making these saves, he's not always in the best position. And TNT did a good job of kind of really like showing like eagle eye views of him. Sometimes he is way out of the crease. And again, I never played goalie, but I know that's not really where you want to be. And especially against a team like Edmonton. Edmonton couldn't take advantage of it last night.
No.
So we'll see how it goes in game 3.
You brought up the great point of not only did the Avalanche hold on, like the last minute of the period is really bad here lately in the playoffs for the Avalanche and letting up goals, and for them to kill that penalty, have the penalty kill and kill that penalty off going into the next period. Like, that was a clutch moment. I think one of the most clutch moments of the game.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I think it was less than a minute. I think they had to kill going when the third period started, but there's a big difference between when that penalty carries over in just the surface of the ice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, teams look forward to that. And when they have a penalty to start a period on a fresh sheet of ice, and you got, I think it was like, I can't remember exactly. It was 45 seconds or something like that. Could be wrong, but I
Yeah.
know it was less than a minute. Sometimes it's all they need.
Yeah.
And to shut that down was big. Now on the other end with power plays, Avalanche were 1 for 7. It's a little bit skewed, but because at the end there was a couple penalties called on Edmonton, which we'll get to the goonery later, but it didn't start off great for the Avs in power plays. You had a 5-on-3 for over a minute and a half, and I believe they got one shot on goal. Like, that cannot happen. Like, when you have a 5-on-3, I know you want to move the puck around and you're waiting for that perfect look because it's a 5-on-3. Something is going to open up where you can throw an easy shot in the net. But when that's not happening, when that's not materializing, just throw a puck on net. They have 3 guys out there. They can't cover the ice that 5 guys can, or even 4 guys can. So I want the Avs, like, fine, move it around a little bit. If you can get that perfect shot they're looking for, fine. If it's not happening, throw a puck on net because you have 5 guys, or ignore the guy that took the shot. You have 4 guys there to clean up the mess, and the Avs just aren't doing that on a 5-on-3. It wasn't a good way to start, and I know there was a lot of people like, that was horrible. I'm not going to say it wasn't, but we can talk about that in a different context now because of the way the game ended, but we can't forget about that. Like, that does need to change if the Avs get another opportunity.
There's no way Burakovsky meant that much to the power play to where you that you walk away with one shot. Like, that's bad. And like, I look at it this way every time when the Avalanche like fumble the power play like this, that's 6 goals you left out there. It could be a 10-0 shutout game. Like,
I mean, if you go 7 for 7 on a power play, which is, I mean,
it's you had the opportunity, and it's a main advantage. It's an advantage. Like, they refer to it as the main advantage. Like, take advantage of the opportunity. Like, if you didn't have that bunch in the second period of goals, it would be a 1-0 game.
Right.
Like, it's the difference in a 10-0 game and a 1-0 game is your power play.
Well, we'll talk about the power plays at the end and how the game kind of, when games like this happen, you know, the team that's on the losing end is going to get some shots in to kind of set the tone for the next game. But I want to talk about the dynamic between how Edmonton handled it and how the Avalanche handled it right at the end. But first, let's hear from betonline.net. And I hope you didn't listen to us and go with the over in this one. That's why it's I choose my bets sparingly, Mr. Shaggy Von Doom.
I was this close to doing it. Yeah. Almost.
Yeah. But betonline.net, it's your number one source for all of your betting stats and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, news, and odds, including this year's basketball championship matchups, the NHL hockey conference finals, Major League Baseball, and of course, the latest fighting news in MMA and UFC to boxing. BetOnline is your continued source for all of your sporting wagering information, including live betting, esports, and more. So head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in the action. BetOnline.net, where the game starts. So like I was saying, you get that. You get guys kind of giving some cheap shots and stuff like that. And you didn't get that in game 1. You got none of that. Everybody was on their best behavior. And then, you know, in this game, when you kind of knew that when the Avs got that 4-0 lead, maybe even in between that, like a little bit before that, the thing with like Bone Byram, when he kind of went over on the board and you're pulling him, like, that stuff is such trash to me. Yeah. Like, if you're going to do something, do it out on the ice. Don't do it to a guy who's, you know, out there and he gets checked into your bench, and then you're going to. I remember when JT Compher got pulled back. I think it was by someone I think we were playing Detroit. I can't remember who it was, but same thing. Like, guy, whoever it was just pulled his jersey like right back into like that. I don't have any tolerance for garbage like that, but they did call him for it. Good. Mm-hmm. And then you had Darnell Nurse gooning it up. Obviously, you had Evander Kane doing that, and at the end, Number one, well, first of all, why are you going after Josh Manson when you know his father is your coach?
He sent it out. He's like, we got to take him out.
Because I have to assume that Josh Manson's father was not the one who he didn't order the hit, basically. So because if he did, like I said before, you're not going to see your granddaughter if that's
true.
on you. So I'm joking here. I don't think he did that. I think it was completely up to Evander Kane to go after him. But look at the response from the Avalanche. Like the Avalanche could have taken that and said, now we have a 5-on-3, because then they called Nurse for cross-checking Nichushkin right at the end. And even there was like a minute to go. The Avs could have thrown their first unit out there and said, we're going to pot another one on you for those ridiculous actions. But what is that really? That's just kind of like self-serving for the Avalanche. I would have done it. I'll fully admit that stuff like angers me, but Jared Bednar was like, no, we got this game in hand. We're going to take our 2-0 lead and go to our locker room.
Yeah. And that's the thing that's really stood out about this Avalanche team and their swagger in the whole playoffs. It's very corporate, very just like, we're going to take care of business. You're not going to affect our game. Like it's like in the St. Louis series with Nas and his reaction, it's just very corporate. Like, we'll do our thing. And at that point, when the Goonery started, you started to feel like the game was out of reach for Edmonton. Like there was no chance for that to come back. And they were prepping to try and make it a little bit harder for Game 3 when this series goes back to Edmonton, and maybe give themselves a little advantage by messing up a little Bo Byram or maybe a Cale Makar, or, just add a little bit extra on those hits and affect them to be day-to-day or questionable for Game 3. Just throw them off their game a little bit. But the Avalanche didn't respond to that.
Right. And I have no problem with Edmonton doing that. I don't. Like I get that. That's the game within the game.
Yeah.
But it's how you do it and what I'm paying attention to. You don't rip a guy's helmet off the guy on the bench. Going after Cale Makar, like the first hit in Cale Makar was fine, and then he followed it up with an elbow to his head.
Yeah.
And then you have, cross-checking Nichushkin right into the boards. Like, if you like when a play is dead and you want to, do some face washing and stuff like that, I got no problem with that. But I just wasn't appreciative of how Edmonton did it. And I kind of wish Jared Bednar said, I wonder if he would have if the next game was at home. Maybe going into Edmonton, you maybe didn't want to give them any more, bulletin board material. So maybe he's, thinking of it that way. I don't know.
The best way to stop that from happening, because we talked about it in the first segment, the power play was ineffective.
Yeah.
Score 7 goals, and where they're like, you know what? I don't want to go back to that box because they're going to put another one on us.
Yeah. Yep.
Take the sting out of it.
Absolutely. So other than that, I mean, the focus should be on Pavel Francouz, because and we talked about him in the beginning. So he gave Darcy Kemper another night off. I don't think there's any way, even if Kemper is 100%, I don't think you pull him, not after pitching a shutout. So we probably won't even hear if Kemper is ready to go. Because Game 3 is Pavel Francouz in net.
There wasn't a timetable announced at all. There wasn't a day-to-day or anything. It was just out.
Yep.
So,
and I think that's on purpose. They're not going to throw a timetable out because of this specific reason. If Pavel Francouz plays well, he's playing Game 3, and I think the only thing that I'm just kind of thinking this on the fly of okay, if Kemper's good to go, you would put him as your backup. So maybe that visual is okay. He's good to go, but we're still going with the guy who just pitched the shutout. I think anybody would be against that. And if anybody saw Darcy Kemper on the bench for Game 3, they'd be like, yeah, like he should be there. Number one, because he's struggling a little bit, and the guy that replaced him just shut out Connor McDavid and the Edmonton Oilers. He's been granted another start. So
I honestly, I still stand by. I think this is the Frankie show for the rest of the series.
Of this series, you don't think for the rest of? I mean, if they make it to the Stanley Cup Finals, that's a different animal.
You know, I said this tonight or last night in the Twitter space. This is a beautiful narrative that the Avalanche are painting right now. Round 1 taking out Duchesne, round 2 taking out O'Reilly, round 3 possibly Barry and McDavid, and then for so many years we've been hearing about Frankie's on the way. He's going to take over, replace Grubauer. He's going to be your 1A. What a beautiful story that could be painted that he takes over finally in the playoffs in a round that we never get to play in, take us to the Stanley Cup that we never get to play in, and possibly win the whole thing on the back of Frankie. It's a beautiful narrative that the Avalanche could paint in this playoffs, and I really feel like if we get another incredible performance, just like we had last night in Game 3, I believe the starter position has shifted.
I'm not going to go that far just yet. I can't go that far just yet. I still think, Grubauer is or Grubauer. There we go.
No,
Kemper is your guy. Because we were talking how long, pretty much for most of the season, we're saying your top priorities in the offseason are Val Nichushkin and Darcy Kemper, and I still hold true to that. So, but I'm glad Pavel Francouz is going to be around to do things like this. Like, this was a very Avalanche game on both sides of the ice. They got a lot of shots on net. They scored 4 goals. They held their opponent to 24 shots on goal. That is serviceable. That Pavel Francouz can win that game. But look for Edmonton to change their game plan and throw a lot more shots on net. Can he handle that is the question. If these roles are reversed and 40 shots are thrown towards Pavel Francouz, I mean, that's a lot to ask to pitch a shutout with 40 shots on goal, but can he hold them to 1 or 2 goals? That remains to be seen, and I think you're going to get that in Game 3 with him. So he did great work in Game 2. The work is not done for the Avalanche, and especially for him, because you're going to get a different look. You're going to get it's home ice for Edmonton. He's going to have to be on his game because they're down 2-0 now. They are going to throw everything at you. He's going to have to be up for the challenge.
I feel like scoring 6 less goals is not working for Edmonton, so I would definitely change it up.
Yeah, you would think. All right, let's get to our sound check. And anybody that's just joining, after every Avalanche game, win or lose, Kyle and I pick one song each that both we feel represents or summarizes the game that the Avs just played. And we throw these songs up on a playlist over on Spotify. Just search LOPN Soundcheck and follow that playlist along. So what do we got for Game 2, Edmonton and Colorado?
This is another one of those, I'm putting my fingerprint in the playlist that when everybody goes to listen to it on Spotify and they put it on shuffle, this song will come up and they're like, oh, this has got to be a Shaggy pick. Connie Francis. The song is just Frankie. Frankie, wherever you are, I love you.
Yeah.
This is a song devoted to Frankie and Connie Francis's love for a man named Frankie at some point in 19 whenever. It's an old school, like, Fallout sounding song. It's a good song. So, Frankie, this one's for you, bud.
See, I had mine ready. And I'm now, I don't know if I should change it or not. I don't know if I should. I don't want to. But God, that's such a good one. I wish I thought of it before, but I can't. I can't change it. I'm locked in. All right. I went with 90s rap hip hop icons, Public Enemy, and Shut 'Em Down. And that's exactly what our boy Frankie did last night. I'll tell you what I just thought of. I was gonna go with because when you said that this name of the song was Frankie, I'm like, why didn't I go with a Frankie Valli song?
Oh, and there's also that Frankie Sinatra by the Avalanches.
I know the Avalanches. That's what they have a song called that.
They have a song called Frankie
Frankie
Sinatra.
Sinatra. That's hilarious. That's funny. So no, but I got to go Public Enemy. We don't have too much rap on the playlist.
We need a little bit more.
Let's throw some Public Enemy on there and shut them down. Shut them down. Because that's what Frankie did. So, all right, a couple other things I wanted to get to. One was, I don't like to complain about the presentation of the game, whatever station it's on. Like, I think Altitude does a great job, but obviously this is on Altitude. When you have these national broadcasts, you can kind of pick out like who the announcers, even though they're supposed to be neutral, are kind of pulling for. And I'm not saying they're pulling for Edmonton. A lot of people are like, well, Gretzky's, up in the booth. Like he is so pro Edmonton. I get that. He played for them. Come on.
It's because the team that he picked, we knocked him out of the playoffs.
Yeah, right. But I was noticing when like they were making a lot of excuses for Edmonton not doing things, not like getting like good shots on net or turning the puck over, whatever the case may be. They were making excuses for Edmonton rather than giving Colorado the credit for causing Edmonton to not do those things, if that makes sense. And they were doing it. They were giving credit to the Avalanche. I don't want to say this was like completely one-sided, and they were giving a lot of credit to Francouz. But when like a play would happen, it was almost like, well, the reason why Edmonton couldn't do this is because they screwed up, not because Colorado forced them to screw up. And I don't know if anybody else was like kind of noticing that. I'm sure there were people who did, but is this just like, and we get this all the time with the Avs, like when they played the Rangers on MSG, that was a Ranger broadcast during the regular season. Like, let's get real. It was crazy. So I'm used to it. And again, I don't want to I want to emphasize like I didn't get that vibe that they were like rooting for Edmonton. It was just frustrating that more credit wasn't going to Colorado for creating havoc for Edmonton.
Chris, it's because the Avalanche are bland, or wait a minute, a hot girl with no personality.
That's the other one. Yeah.
They're just
and because they play at a high altitude for some reason.
Oh, the high altitude, and any team with Nathan MacKinnon should win, and Cale Makar and Gabe Landeskog.
Right.
They should, like why? Edmonton should. They have McDavid. This is why they should be able to do all this.
Right. I mean, you held them to 24 shots on goal, and you shut them out. Just give some credit. Give a little bit more credit. So it was a little frustrating, and I don't expect that to change going into Edmonton now. So,
but McDavid can take over a game whenever he wants to.
Yeah, but he didn't. And why didn't he? Because the Avalanche had a great defensive game plan. So
not on my broadcast.
Speaking of your broadcast, which was the Twitter Spaces, which was blowing up, which is awesome. There was some people who weren't happy with some chants going on in Ball Arena. Explain what was going on there.
That's right. I went to Chris and I tattled.
He's supposed to report to me every night, people.
That's right. I have a written report. You guys don't understand. Right, I write out a report. The "We Want the Cup" chants. I want this in the YouTube comments. I want to hear your side of this. I was told there's no wrong or right answer, but I'm right. Is "We Want the Cup" chanted at Ball Arena? Is that something that messes with superstition? I feel like it is not. It is literally the goal from Seattle to Ottawa to Columbus to Tampa to Colorado. When you start the season, you want the cup. When it's played at the commercial, it's chanted in the background. It's literally what you want. And you have a team that you're finally confident in that can do it. You could say, "We want the cup."
You can say "we want the cup" because, like you just said, that's what you want. You're not saying "we got the cup." You're not saying like it's in the bag. Like that, I wouldn't say. And even though I'm not buying into superstitions, I still wouldn't say that just because we've won nothing.
Yeah.
And, going through the seasons that we've gone through in the past, even though we are sitting pretty right now, 2 wins away from getting to that Stanley Cup final, like, we know, you're still playing a good team. We know we've been on the opposite end of this.
We've cried we want the cup in 16-17.
Yeah. So no, I don't have a problem with it. I really don't, because that's, like you said, that's the goal. That is the goal. So I am interested to see what people like, and even going even further than that with like the conference final, like trophies, and how like teams don't want to touch that.
Do we touch them?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I am grabbing that thing. I'm not going to pass it around like it's the Stanley Cup, but I'm always the guy that's like, like, that's an achievement.
It's been 20 years.
Celebrate it. They're probably, whatever team, I guarantee you, whatever team wins these conference finals, they won't, because that seems to be the trend lately, is that they're not touching that trophy. I'm against that. I grab it. It's been, especially for guys like Nathan MacKinnon, who he's been in the league for how long and hasn't won what. Yeah. Well, now you did. You won something. Celebrate it. Grab it. Go into the locker room. Enjoy it. I do want to get to this comment too. Jay Woodcroft, Edmonton head coach. This is from Daniel Nugent Bowman, and I don't know if this person, he's a reporter for The Athletic. So he said, Woodcroft made a point not to criticize the referees and tried not to after the game. However, he felt Yamamoto was in a, quote, vulnerable position on the Landeskog hit, and said he's sure the league will look at it. He also made it a point to say that they were shorthanded 7 times. You were shorthanded 7 times because your team made boneheaded penalties. Those were easy penalties to call. Every single one of them. So don't get mad at the refs. Get mad at your team for being stupid. I'll say that about that.
That's ridiculous.
And about the Landeskog hit, it's not Landeskog's hit problem that Yamamoto is like 5'5" or 5'4". He's a little guy. I like him. I like him a lot. But that any hit on him is going to look a little bit more severe than it is because of his size. It's like Sammy Girard.
I was about to say, Sam Girard, every hit looks brutal.
It does. That was a good hit by Gabe Landeskog. And I was not even thinking about it and talking about it on this episode until I saw that comment. So I think that's a coach who's just disgruntled right now, who's mad at his team, and he's going to blame everybody else except his own team for doing stupid things. So grow up. All right. That's going to wrap it up for today. Thank you for making this your first listen. Always appreciated. They're playing Saturday, so we got to figure out if we're doing a Saturday night show for Sunday. I don't know. Follow us on Twitter, and we'll kind of play that by ear. If nothing else, obviously we'll definitely have one for Monday. But depending if the game goes well, or even if it doesn't, sometimes when it's a loss, we always have a lot to talk about too. But let's not plan for that. I don't know. We'll play it by ear. Why don't you just subscribe to the show, and then if we have one, you get the notification.
You'll have it.
So, but that's going to wrap it up for us today, everybody. Avs up 2-0, 2 more wins. They're in the cup final. Let's go get it. It's a good sound. I like saying things like that. So, gotta love it. Until next time, he's Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. I am Chris Maselli, and this is the Locked On Avalanche podcast. We'll see you guys soon.